Today we're going to talk about pressure networks, common use best practices. Going to cover the parts list for pressure pipe networks. We're going to talk about different ways of creating the network, talk about the 3D compass, the options in the ribbon when it comes to plan view and profile view, and then we'll actually look at making custom parts. So we're going to start out pretty basic, but we will definitely increase on the technical difficulty as the webinar goes on. So to start it out, I just like to see, hey, where's everyone at? I got a quick poll question, and it's, are you using pressure pipe networks? Still using 2D work? I have a workaround using gravity pipes. That's a big one that we see. Yes, but not completely. Some people have just used the pressure pipe networks in plan view, but then did manual work in profile view. And then, yes, we're using it in both plan and profile. So looks like we got the majority of the people here still doing 2D work, which is good. So starting out where we're at, it's going to fall right into your wheel well. And then at the end of the webinar, all those that are saying, yes, we're using it, hopefully I can throw you some tips and tricks that will just make your process just that much better. So we'll go ahead and get going. Parts list. You'll have 3 different parts lists. Well, one parts list, but has 3 different tabs. The first one is for the pressure pipes. And right now I just took a quick screenshot. I have 4 different pipe sizes for ductile iron pipe. Out of the box, standard style, rendering material, pay-atom. Pay-atom works great when you're using QTO and you want to say, hey, every time I have this 90-degree elbow, or in this case, because I'm in pressure pipes, anytime that I'm using a 10-inch pipe, give it this pay-atom so I can generate a report that says, hey, I got 15,000 feet of pipe divided by 10, I'm going to have, or 20 feet to be accurate on the true size of the pipe, depending on where you get it from. It'll tell me, hey, I need X amount of pipe. Great way for QTO. You have your parts list built up, so every time you build a network, it generates the quantities for you. Rendering material, that's pretty self-explanatory. Hey, if I go into model view and I do realistic, what do I want my pipe to look like in that view? And then the style. The style is what it looks like. Am I going to show center line of the pipe? Am I going to show outside walls of the pipe? Am I going to show inside walls of the pipe? How do I want my pipe to look when it's in model space? In plan view, ISO view, front view, how do I want it to look like? The next tab are the fittings, and typically the fittings are going to consist of crosses, so an actual 4-way intersection, elbows, and then T's. And then again, we have the style, rendering material, and pay-atoms. And finally, the last one is appurtenances. Appurtenances right now currently only have gate valves, whether it's rated at 150 psi or 200 psi. There's been talk of adding a couple of appurtenances in later releases. Personally, I wouldn't hold your breath. They had some in there in some beta programs in the betas, but they never made it to the full release. So parts list, you want to generate a parts list that only contains the parts that you'll use on a common basis. So maybe 90% of the time. Because you don't want to have a parts list that's going to have a gate valve and it's going to have 700 different gate valves in there when you only use 4. Make a parts list that will only have the pertinent valves in there, the pertinent elbows, T's, crossings, and then the pipe sizes. The pipe sizes 6, 8, 10, 12. Those are the common. Yes, you'll get down to 3 and 2 when you get into the residential neighborhoods. But just have a parts list for the sizes that you're going to need. The next is network creation. There's actually two different panels, dialog boxes, that will open up based off of how you create your network. The big one that I have on the left here is if I actually have a polyline drawn and I say create pressure pipe network from object. As most of you know, when you create an alignment from an object, it's a little bit easier than building it from scratch. So a lot of people build their alignments with a polyline and then turn it into an alignment. Pressure pipes are no different. I can build a polyline of saying, hey, where do I want my line to go? And I'm just going to say, build a network based off of that line. And in this example, you'll see that it's got a parts list of water, kind of like the list that we just generate, or I showed you some screen caps on. It's going to say pick the size of material. So by default, all my pipe will be a 10-inch push-on ductile iron pipe rated at 350 psi. I can assign a layer, a surface in there, so it knows how do I want to go about this, because right after there I have elevation reference, depth of cover. Typically pressure pipes are rated to top of pipe because you have a specific cover. I can come in and add an 8-foot cover. Here in Minnesota, I think it's 7.8 feet, but hey, 8's just easier. I'll pay for an extra 2 inches of dirt, or to have the backhoe scoop out that little extra. But the other option in here is actually use vertex elevation. And with this situation, I can actually specify the top of pipe, which is kind of defaulted right now if it was selected. I could actually pick the crown of the inner diameter, so it would actually pick the highest point of the ID. Center line, basically center line of pipe, or inside or invert, which would obviously be the bottom lowest portion of the ID, and then outside bottom, basically bottom of pipe. So I have the 5 different options of how I want to define my polyline or define my pipe. And then you got the infamous erase existing entities just so you don't have duplicates. That's creating a pressure pipe network from an object. The most common one is you're just going to say create a pressure pipe network, and then you're going to build it from scratch. From there, you still get name it, parts list, target surface, and then what labels do you want it to be. So anytime I create a pipe, it has this label. Anytime I create a fitting, it has this label. Anytime I create an appurtenance, it has this label. Simple enough. 2 different dialog boxes, couple different options depending on what you pick. We have a 3D compass with pressure pipe networks. We'll get into that in the demo. We'll show it a little bit, but I have the capabilities of defining how big of a compass it's actually going to be. Right now it's 150 pixels. In a 3D plane, it shows every 45 degrees. In a 3D snaps, it'll snap every 45 degrees. I can change the color with the color wheel right there. So if I don't like yellow, like I have as a default, I can actually change it to be red or blue or green, a color that will stand out based off of your company's standards when it comes to colors for other features. And the image in the center of the screen is what the compass looks like. And as you can see, I have tick marks. And these tick marks actually represent a typical elbow. So as my line is coming up, it's coming from the south to the north, then I have my angle point here. It shows me a tick mark at 90 degrees, so I can have a 90-degree elbow either left or right. I can have a 45-degree elbow left or right, and my line is actually continuing up on the 45-degree line right now. I can have a 22.5 degree and then an 11.25. This is really nice because those are the typical degrees for a elbow. So I can just instantly just click and then say, yep, I want to put it there. And now with my line, it'll only give me 90, 45, 22.5, or 11.25. So I don't have to worry about, hey, what's the angle of my this elbow, and have to figure out which direction I need to target or project the next line into. This automatically snaps to it for you. It's a good thing and it's also a bad thing, because sometimes you want to take advantage of that 5 degrees of deflection that's allowed in pipes, and maybe I want 2 points. We'll go 3 points. I got a start point, an angle point, and then my end point, and maybe the angle between them is going to be 30 degrees instead of 45 or 22.5. Well, by putting in a 45-degree elbow and then using that deflection, I'd have the ability to actually angle my pipe that 400 feet to make up that extra 10 degrees. It's hard to do that with the compass, so we'll have to use the polyline feature for that, and we're going to get into the examples of that at the end. The cool feature with the compass is if you go to like an ISO view or model view of your drawing space, your model space, you can actually, when you have your compass available, you can hit the P and it'll actually rotate your compass. So right now in the image I have in there, that's a plan view. So right now these are only horizontal bends. I hit the P when I'm in a model view or an ISO view, and now I will go from the first click, it'll rotate at 45 degrees, and now I have a horizontal and vertical bend at the same time. If I hit P again, now my compass is actually true north and south, or not north and south, up and down in terms of elevation. So now I have just a vertical bend when it comes to putting in a fitting. So by rotating my compass with the P command, I can go from strictly a horizontal bend to a horizontal and vertical bend to then just a vertical bend. And as long as I keep hitting P, it'll just keep circling around. So plan view. When you have a network in and you come up and you say edit network in your ribbon after you've selected that pressure pipe network, you will see plan layout tools and profile layout tools. Well, I got the profile layout tools here. Whoops, I had them out of order. I meant to put plan first, my fault. We'll do profile. It gives me the ability to add a few features in here. What's my target surface? If I have an alignment, I can target an alignment. And then what's my parts list? I can add pipes and bends. I can add specific pipe, I can add specific bends, I can add specific appurtenances. So this does the pipe and bend. These 3 will only add a specific single entity. So in this case, in the image, it'll add a 10-inch DIP pipe. For the bend, it will add in 11.25 degree elbow for 10-inch. And the appurtenance, it will add in a 10-inch gate valve. I will have the ability to add curved pipe. Don't really understand the curved pipe philosophy. I like the deflection angle better. But it'll actually allow you to put in a curve. So maybe you got some water main and it's coming up to a sanitary line or a storm line, and you have to make it go underneath the pipe. So instead of just putting in a vertical bend, they have a tool here that's called curve pipe that will allow you to actually curve the pipe underneath your interfering crossing pipe. Then the other cool tool I like is the follow surface. It will allow you to pick a surface, pick your network of pipes or a range of network pipes, and it will say how deep do you want to go, and you say 7.8 or 8 feet, and it'll actually follow that surface. So your FG surface or your finished grade surface, it will follow it. It has some glitches in there because what it does is it'll actually break a 400-foot piece of pipe up into 20-foot segments because that's the typical length of the pipe. So at the start of each pipe and the end of each pipe, it will be 8-foot bury. But showing the outer diameter, the outside of the pipe, the inside of the pipe with the follow surface makes your profile view look really choppy and really ugly. I'm going to show you a process that I like that makes the drawing look a little bit better, a little bit neater. and more aesthetically pleasing. Other tools you have are break pipe, delete part, panorama, change slope, change elevations. I don't really use those as much through the ribbon, just for the fact that I will use the grips, or I'll just click on the pipe, right click on it and say delete. Click on the fitting, right click on it, say delete. It's just my preference. I just use the right click command when it comes to parts to delete things. Oops, maybe I actually did. Oh, my fault. I actually did have plan view first. I just hit enter twice. Jump back to plan view. So now I have the same edit network, plan view, profile view. I still have almost the same network settings. What surface am I following? What alignment? Parts list? My cover. Right now, out of the box default is 3 feet. I think someone in the Midwest or the middle states, like maybe southern Iowa, came up with a 3-foot berry. Select size and material. Again, it's picking a 10-inch ductile iron pipe. I got pipes and bends, pipes only. So I can, anytime I do pipes and bends, it will continue my line on. Pipes only, it stops. Now I have add fitting, add appurtenances, just like I did in profile view. I have break pipe, move parts, slide pipes. Again, I don't use those in the ribbon because break pipe was nice when it first came out. Now you can just add a T, add a gate valve, and it'll automatically break your pipe for you. And so I don't see the point of breaking a pipe when just dropping the fitting or the appurtenance in. We'll do it for you. Move parts, I don't use it. Slide parts, I don't use it, just for the fact that if I want to move my gate valve, I click on my gate valve and then I just pick on the grips and I move it up and down the pipe. So again, I'm a right clicker. I enjoy grips. Makes it a little bit easier. And then you see the screenshot about our compass, what size, yellow, the diameter, and so on. Well, as you saw in my appurtenance parts list, they only have gate valves. You have the ability to actually generate your own custom pressure parts if you know how to draw solid objects in AutoCAD. I have one built up relatively quickly, and I'm going to demonstrate how to take that part and then that solid and define it as a pressure pipe network piece. And it's just simply in the middle, you have connection points. We build our part. We'll add connection points to the object. The first connection point, it will become where your part will connect to your network that's already existing in Civil. And from there, we'll publish the part, and at the bottom on this long, narrow one, it's, hey, what type of part is it? You can have a cap, you can have a coupling, cross, elbow, hydrant, plug, pump, reducer, T valve, and Y. The only one you can't have in there is a pipe. Civil 3D is saying, you know what, pipes are pretty basic. You don't need to create your own custom pipes using the content editor. So they never put pipe in there. I've gone in and I've actually created my own pipe, and I just called it an elbow with a 0 degree of deflection. Kind of funny, but it got the job done. But you can only put them in one at a time, and it was set to the specific length of my pipe of 20 feet. I couldn't say, oh, click here and then click 1,000 feet down the line and have it just draw one big long one. So it has its limitations, but pretty much I somewhat agree with Civil 3D, or I should say Autodesk. You don't really need to make custom pipes. You need the custom elbows, you need the custom T's, the Y's, the crossings, caps, plugs, and so on. And after I define that, and then by default it's inches. One of the previous things was, is it in inches or millimeters, not feet. Even though Civil's set to be feet, you want to define everything as inches. So when you build this, you build it in inches, not as feet. And you'll go on. So we define that as maybe an elbow and then inches, and then you'll create your content file, and it'll actually be pipe.content. You save it, and then you open up your content editor, which is this dialog box on the right-hand side, and you'll actually import the content file. And then you'll define it as what type of part it is, and it will be added to whatever catalog you choose. And then from there, you go back into Civil 3D, you create a parts list, or you open up your parts list and you'll add your brand new custom parts to it, and then you can build from it. So let's go ahead and jump into the software. And what I have is I have just a nice surface here, and I have a red line here that I want to represent as my pipe network. It's pre-drawn for me, but it's how I want to have it follow. So I'm going to come up to the Home tab, and I'm going to say Pipe Network, Pressure Network Creation Tools, or Create Pressure Network from Object. We're going to go from Object. I'm going to select my object. Just like alignments, it's going to say, hey, where do you want to start from? Where do you want to end from? The direction of my arrows is telling me that the north end of my line is going to be where I'm starting from. Well, it sounds good to me. Hit enter to accept. Wait for my dialog box to open up. I'm going to give it a name of Polyline as my network. My network parts list will be water. Here's where you have your size pipes. 10-inch, 12, 16, and 6. Whatever I select, all my pipe will be that size. So I don't technically have the ability to say, hey, I got a T in here, and the main portion of the T is a 10-inch line, but the side portion of the T is only a 6-inch line. I can't draw my entire network and have it distinguish between 12-inch or 10-inch and 6-inch. Everything has to be the same size, doing it this way. We're going to go 10-inch. We're going to target my EG surface, and we're going to put in a cover of 8 feet. I'm in Minnesota, 8 feet. And then, yes, I'm going to erase my existing entity. I'm going to say OK. Instantly drew my part. The problem I had was, because it was a polyline, what Civil did was it said, hey, you have an angle of 151 degrees there at your bend point. You know what? I don't really have an elbow that will match that, but I'm going to take the one that's closest, which I believe it ended up putting in the 22.5, if I did my math right. And if I zoom into it, there's my elbow, and actually it looks more like the 11.25. But my lines don't line up. Let me get this into a different view, and we're going to leave it as 2D hidden. You can see my pipe. There we go. It actually, the last time I did it, it put the slop on the north side. This time it put the slop. Oh, that's because my fault. The last time I did it, I had the south side as my start point and the north as my end point. What you can see is my pipe that's coming into the elbow actually goes through the shoulder of the fitting. So it doesn't fit per se. It's not going to seal properly. It's an invalid fitting for that angle. It's not going to work. It looked good on this side because it put the fitting in based off of the starting point. But on the south side, it's not going to fit. So if you ever do your pressure pipe networks, make sure that when you put your angle of deflection in, you put it in at a 90, at a 45, or I guess 45 plus or minus 5 degrees, 90 plus or minus 5 degrees, because you are allowed that 5 degrees of deflection per pipe and still have it seal. So that's using from object. Maybe we want to create the pipe from, or the network from scratch. So I'm going to go back to my Home tab, Pipe Network, Creation Tools. This one I'm going to call Water. Parts list is water. Surface is EG. Pressure network labels. We're going to use nominal diameter, fitting, nominal diameter, and then appurtenance is nominal diameter. Obviously, what label style will match your company's, but I'm going to get in and show you how to modify these labels to make it look a little bit more appealing. Instead of ductile iron pipe, it actually says DIP and things like that. So I'm going to say OK. And it instantly took me to the plan view ribbon, and I have all my pipes. So I have by default 10-inch, but there's the 4 styles I have. My elbows, 10, 12, 16, 6 at 11 1/4. Then I got 22 1/2, 45, and 90. The appurtenances, I have the gate valves, 6, 10, 12, 16. I have those sizes. The best part about this is when I build my pipe network, when I click, I put my second one in, I get my compass, and it automatically builds the compass based on my parts list. So if I don't have any 90-degree elbows, I don't get the compass for 90 degrees. But I can come in and I can put there, and then maybe we'll keep just jogging up my line. And I can add my line in there. Looks like I forgot to delete out my labels on some of my features. So you got a few extra labels in there. Well, as I build this, you can see that all my pipes come in flush. But maybe I need to move this one up. Actually get my 5 degrees of deflection. So here's 0. I can actually come in and put this and just click right there. Or maybe I want to come in and I want it 4. I just type in 4 and enter, and it automatically moved it down 4 units. So now if I click here again, 4, it brought me down another 4 degrees based off where my cursor was when I hit enter. I can hit the plus sign at the end of a pipe, and it brings my compass right back up. So now I can say, oh, yep, now I need to continue on over there. Stop, plus sign, come out again. Erase, erase. Maybe I want to put my deflection in first and then add my pipe, just to make it more realistic in the world because of that 5 degrees of deflection that's allowed in each pipe and still have it sealed. The downfall to pressure pipe networks is that 8-foot hold down that I put in right up in here. It held the 8-foot here and the 8-foot at every time I clicked. It did not hold that 8-foot in the middle of the pipe. So you may have a lot of relief on your site, or you might have a swale, you might have a hill. If you go through that hill or that swale and you don't click at the peak or in the swale, it's not going to know to hold that 8-foot. It's going to go straight across. So you might actually have the ability, or you might actually see your pipe come through the ground, out of the ground, in the swale if it's deep enough. Or if it's a hill, you may end up being 30 feet deep instead of going up and over. The hill's a little less of a hindrance than the swale, just for the fact that it's a little bit cheaper just to send your pipe straight through the hill than to have it actually follow the contours of the hill, depending on the size of your hill. Well, I got it in here. I got a quick network in here, but I need to add a T. So I'm going to go up to fittings right here, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to say T's. I'm going to go down to my elbows, drop past those, and T's. I want a 10 by 10 T. Add fitting. drop it in right there. There's my T. Plops in right away. Again, I have the ability to move parts. I can say move part and then click on it. And then where do I want to put it? I want to put it there. That doesn't really work for me. I say undo, move it back. I like the grips personally. Now what I can do is I can hit the diamond and it moves my pipe up and down, or it moves my fitting up and down the pipe. So now I don't have to worry about, oops, did I accidentally move my fitting offline a little bit? So I like the grips. And then with the grips, you can see the plus sign for this one coming out, and I can add my pipe to come out of it again. And so on. Well, actually, we'll go right back to my T. Need to add a gate valve. Gotta go to the appurtenances, gate valve 10-inch, add appurtenance, and click. Add appurtenance. There we go. Now I have a gate valve at the end of my pipe. Need a gate valve to prove that it's actually closed. You have the ability to do design checks within your pipe network by right click, run design check, and what it'll do is it'll look for open pipes. So if there isn't a gate valve within, I think it's 5 feet. I haven't really measured it out or proved that if the gate valve is more than 30 feet away, that it won't work. But it will look to see if there's a gate valve, if your pipe closes, or maybe I forgot something, so now my ordering or my bill of material is wrong. There is a run depth check also, and what it'll do is it takes your hold down, and then we'll look to see if you violate. And on that topic right there, there is, can you set an elevation for a pressure network to follow one of 5 elevation references? Right now, it's you pick one elevation, one surface, and every time you click it, it follows that one surface. You do have the capabilities, I believe, when you do follow surface, that you can pick what surface you want to follow and then what pipes you want to have it follow. So with that way, I could have 5 different surfaces and then say the first group of pipes follow surface 1, the second group follows surface 2, and so on. But to, the 5 elevation references, not too sure. I can get in contact with you after the webinar and discuss that in detail a little bit more. If anyone has an answer to that, feel free to use the chat. Just send out a comment to everybody. But yeah, I'll get in contact with you a little bit later with more information. So that's building the pipes from scratch. It's pretty simple. If I want to build, I'm going to build a quick profile, then I want to spend my last 20 minutes on the content editor and bringing things in like that. So I'm going to build a quick profile view of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Home, Alignment. I need to build an alignment to have a profile. And I'm going to come down and say, Create Alignment from Pressure Network. I'm going to pick my first pipe. And just like gravity pipes, all you got to do is pick the first one and the last one, and it will find everything in between. Gets my dialog box. Alignment, we'll leave it as defaults, type, miscellaneous. I'll leave everything as is. Say OK. I'm going to add my EG surface into it. I have a small delay with my dialog boxes popping up. I got to either move my dialog box or something. Draw in profile view, create profile view. And I have now what my pipe looks like in profile view. And this is my first tip, is I'm always showing center line of my pipe, because if I come into my edit pressure pipe style, if I show inner pipe walls, outer pipe walls, which is funny because it's actually profile view, display, center line, apply, okay. That's weird that it's actually edit pressure pipe style. Oh, sorry, profile view. Forgot to switch. Switch it from center line, show inner pipe, outer pipes, and pipe ends, apply. It looks like that. It's not too bad, but when I go into profile view and I say follow surface, and I pick that one to that one. Surface below, we're going to go 8 feet. It breaks my pipe up into little tiny segments. Makes it a little less pleasing. I could come in, edit pressure styles, go back to profile view, and now just pipe ends, turn that off, apply, and now it looks a little bit better. But I can also have it go back into, oops, wrong one. Profile view. I can say show center line. And that right there looks a little bit better to me. And then you can have your labels. The benefit to this is the pipes. You can still label top of pipes. To the top, you can, to the crown, to the invert, to the center line. The problem is fittings, you can only go to the center of the fitting. So what I've got is I'm going to add a label to that pipe, and it actually spells out 10-inch ductile iron. Well, I want to add the top elevation at the start and the beginning. I'm going to edit label style, edit the current selection. I'm going to go into the properties here, move that. And I want, near the bottom, there is start outside crown elevation. There's start invert, start center line. Start outside crown, bring it over, enter, and then end outside crown. Bring that over. Say OK, apply, OK, OK. Now I can see basically the elevations of the fitting at the beginning and at the end. And as we know, with styles and labels, I can come in and hard code up station or start fitting, end fitting. I can put some hard coded text in this label so it'll always default to be elevation. The problem is I can't do it with fittings. So I can add my elbow in here, and I'm going to look at my label style for my fittings. And when you look at it, I tried doing a couple expressions, those are the top two, but I have nominal diameter, I have the coatings, I have material, I have schedules. I don't have anything that actually gives me top of pipe or inner diameter versus outer diameter to take half the radius and then subtract it from the center line. The only thing I really have is the insertion point. elevation, and that is the center line of your fitting. And so if I labeled that in it, it would only give me the center line of that fitting. I don't have the capabilities right now to actually put in the top of fitting as an elevation. That's one of the downfalls. But coming in, okay, cancel out of this. Coming in and 10-inch ductile iron. Well, you know what? I don't really want ductile iron. I'm going to get back to that label. First, I want to do is I want to actually jump in to building a custom part. So I'm going to jump into my Y drawing here. And what I've done is, I'll expand that up a little bit. I just have a real basic pipe. I didn't put any shoulders on it. I didn't put any lips. It's just flat pipe. You need couplings to connect them up, but it's got a Y in there. What I did was I built my part using the workspace 3D modeling. I created a circle, I had an axis, I either extruded it, I followed the axis, I revolved it. However you build your 3D solid, it works. I built my part, and then what I needed to do was I needed to add connection points. So I added 3 connection points into here. Connection point 1, 2, and then 3. The first connection point you put in is where that part will connect at when you insert it into your pressure pipe networks. So in my case, anytime I bring this part in, it's always going to connect on this side of the part. When I built it up, I added all my connection points because this gives me the ability to now connect to 3 different outlets on there. I need to publish my part. Got to go down to the command line and say publish part. That should be enough. Content. Hit enter. Select the solid for publishing. I select my part. Now it says select axis or center line. So I pick the center line. That's why your part disappeared, so you could pick the center line. I pick my center line, it comes back. It says specify the measuring units, inches or millimeters. I'm going to go inches. And then in this case, it's a Y. It took a quick screenshot. And now it says, where do you want to store this? Well, I'm going to actually quick call this Y2. And because I already have a Y, I have the exact same part. And I'm going to just say save. Now I have a part saved as a content file. I'm going to quick jump into my content catalog editor. And as you can see, it's in program data, Autodesk, C3D 2015, ENU, pressure pipe catalog, Imperial, AWWA, push on. If you don't know where it's at, in the ribbon in Civil 3D, you say set pressure network catalog, and it'll take you right there, just in case yours is in a different location than default. So what I have is I have a list of all my parts, and I have my Ys. Hey, there's no Ys in there. That's cool. Let's go ahead and import the part. I have the icon here, import part, but I also have edit, import part. Either way, this one's quicker. Import part, import from content file. I'm going to browse to it, and I'm going to quickly jump to my pipe networks. There's the Y2 that I just created a minute ago, and here's the one that I actually created almost 2.5 hours ago. Well, we're going to bring that one in. Say open, say next. Industry, I have water as of now. Part type, what do I want it to be? I cannot change, I cannot add to these. It's a Y, but I do have the ability to add a family name to it, Y, or maybe 350 PSI versus 250 PSI. This is your gate valve 250 psi versus gate valve 350 psi, or this is your ductile iron pipe versus PVC pipe. Your family is PVC versus ductile iron. Next, I can add information in here, the material. Well, typically it's ductile iron. Maybe it's PVC, maybe it's HDPE, whatever. Though the issue I have on this is my material says ductile iron. Well, I don't want it to say ductile iron. I want it to say DIP. Unfortunately, you cannot change ductile iron to be DIP here. You have to change it down in a different spot. Description, I can give out whatever description I want, branch angle, inside coating, whatever I want. We'll leave all that blank. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take advantage of one of the tabs called schedule. And I'm going to actually put in DIP right there. I'm just going to say next. Oops. Y 10-inch. Connection points, I'm going to leave them as push-ons. All look good to me. Couple of angles, positioning, just going to say finish. I now have my Y 10-inch material is ductile iron. My schedule says DIP. I have the ability to actually use some of these blank columns for information in later details. So what I've done really quick is I've actually gone into my pipe, and I believe I did it in the 350 psi. Maybe not. Yep, right here, 10-inch pipe. I actually came in, and the first thing I did was the nominal diameter description. I actually just made it say 10-inch instead of 10-inch by 10-inch. It's a pipe. These values are confusing in my standpoint. So first thing I did was I came into my catalog and actually deleted out the first part because I wanted to be specified 10-inch. But then I also went in and changed, I added DIP to my schedule. Because what this will allow me to do is to jump back into civil, come into my pipe, and here's my 10-inch ductile iron. I'm going to look at this label now a little bit closer. I'm going to say edit, current selection, come into here, move, and now what it's saying is nominal diameter description, which is that 10-inch, not 10-inch by 10-inch. Start outside crown, end outside crown elevation are the two values I have in there. Well, this ID material, that's what's saying ductile iron. I don't want it to say ductile iron. So I'm actually just going to come in and say delete, enter. Oops, let me make sure I'm in the right spot. And now, instead of saying the ID material, I'm going to come down and say schedule as soon as I can find it. There it is, schedule, and bring it over. Say OK. I want to slide that over so you can actually see. First it's pulling the material, ductile iron. I'm going to say apply, say OK. As soon as I say OK, it now comes in and says 10-inch DIP because, oops, wrong one. In my value, I had this spelled out as 10-inch, and then I'm pulling the material, but I'm using the schedule as the material, DIP. Jump back into here, and that's 10-inch DIP. Now I very easily edit label style again, edit. You can see my tick mark right there for the inch symbol. It's hard coded in. That's why it's showing up in the label here, but it wasn't in the content editor. Well, maybe I need to say delete space, move that up. So now there's not a space, if I did it right. So, okay. Now I have 10-inch space DIP all on one line. Taking advantage of these extra columns that aren't being utilized in your part, but Civil has the capabilities of referencing those within the label, allows me to use DIP and not ductile iron or ductile iron pipe. One of my best tips on that, a lot of people like RCP instead of reinforced concrete pipe when it comes to gravity pipes. Makes it a little bit easier. It's known. So while we can't change ductile iron here to be something different, I can come in and use one of these extra columns and then just label it that way. If you look at the labels for fittings, they're a little bit different. At a current selection. I have an insertion point, but I don't have the crown. I don't have the top of pipe. I have a few extra fields in here. So I have an SDR, the standard dimension ratio. Basically your outside diameter divided by your thickness gives you your SDR. If you didn't know that, I just found out what it was 2 hours ago. But all these, for your fittings, I can use any of these columns in the content editor and use them in my labels just by then changing the values in the content editor. So my tips I have for you to end this wonderful webinar is, first, create multiple styles to represent different types of pipes. If I got water main that's existing, make it look different than water main that's proposed or water main that's temporary. Make your styles look different. I want to be able to look at a print and say, yep, that's proposed versus existing, whether it just be the color, and when it plots out, one's light gray, one's dark gray. Definitely edit the content file to display material names as desired. I just finished talking about that, DIP versus ductile iron pipe, and that's basically combining steps 2 and 3. Change the labels to reference the schedule versus the description, the ID material. Those two combined, you can get your labels to print out, be what you want. It just takes a little bit of setup within your content editor. Change labels to display center line of pipe versus outer walls in profile view. My opinion, again, it's just my opinion, but just showing center line of pipe looks a lot better than showing outside of pipe and then end of pipes, especially when you use that top surface or follow surface tool. You don't want to see every 20 feet. You don't want to see that vertical line in there. The other solution is, if you still want to maintain the double line, is just go into that setting for that pipe style and turn off pipe ends. Then you'll still see every kink, but you won't see where the pipe split every 20 feet. Update the command settings to match your typical output. I'll just jump back into that really quick. Cancel, cancel, cancel. Pressure networks. Oops, settings. Pressure networks, commands. Create pressure network. Edit command settings. Definitely come in here for default styles. Have the labels be, or the styles be, what you want. Depth of cover. Right now it's defaulting to 3 foot. Change that to always be 8 foot or whatever your typical is. And my biggest pet peeve is that they set these defaults. So anytime I create a part in profile view, it doesn't automatically label it. Well, guess what? Here, label a pressure pipe in profile view. Change it to true, make the saves. Setting up the command settings, going to that content editor, another way to customize your parts, and then just creating labels referencing different parts of that content editor. Got a couple more questions. Meaning the top of pipe, top of ID, center of pipe, invert, or bottom of pipe. So the 5 elevations. So right now, the only way you can reference those is if you use the polyline command for your pipe. If you create it from a network from scratch, by default, it's always going to top a pipe. Don't have that capability yet to go from centerline. Basically because the value is it's taking the EG surface or the FG surface, and then you got your cover. And so that cover is always to top a pipe. That's all I have in terms of questions right now. I'm just going to jump to our upcoming events. If we have other questions, feel free, get them, send them in. We'll take a peek at them. But we have a webinar coming up June 19th, so a week from today. It's on MakerBot. It's an in-house 3D printing. Makes cool little shapes, models for you, basically to test your models and see if they'll work. Will this suit my needs? Obviously, on the civil side, we can't build a in-house 3D bridge, but I could scale it down to say, hey, this is what the bridge is going to look like at 1 to 500 scale, or something along that line, or 128. Kind of a cute tool. We got a couple people that we've seen use it. We've used it in-house. If any of you attended our menu event, we had it set up by all the vendors, and we're building a couple people and other tools. But we got workshops coming up. We got one on June 23rd on Navisworks, talking about how to use Navisworks to your best of your abilities. And then the next day on the 24th, it's actually going to be creating pressure parts. So we're going to create some parts in Civil 3D, make some 3D solids, export, create the connection points, create that content file, bring it into the content editor, and then bring it into Civil 3D and add it to your parts list. So we're going to build a few parts in there, but by that time you're going to be power users on how to create your own custom parts. I know looking at the list of people here, we have a few that have used this tool already. One I know has already built their hydrant with the 8-foot vertical pipe and the 90-degree elbow right at the bottom of it. A lot of nice custom parts I've seen. A lot of people are using it. If you're not, feel free to come to this workshop. In 4 hours, you'll know how to use it. I'll leave this as, hey, go ahead, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our CTC event page on cadtechnologycenter.com. And because we're current and up to date and we're modern, CTC even has a Twitter account. You can follow us on Twitter. That's what I have. Hey, thanks for attending. Here's our information, www.cadtechnologycenter.com. Here's my email. If you have any questions, feel free, email me. I'll be on the line for another 5-10 minutes. If you have questions, feel free to send them in. If not, go ahead, just contact me via email or by phone. Ask for Scott Mizek, not Scott Zabiela, because he won't know how to answer you. But with that, thanks for attending.